make sure that this works.
Can you hear me?
No.
Love me tender. That's for you, Jimmy. You only. How are you, buddy?
Good, how are you?
Good. How's your buddy doing?
Which one?
Wiedemann.
Give us a couple minutes.
You know, his eyes got that big one. I said, "You big pork chop."
Are you aware, Mayor, that Brett will not be here, correct?
Yes, he called me. He called me.
Okay,
Good.
He was transferred.
you want to go ahead and go, I can,
Oh, okay.
Katie make these.
Oh, we're okay.
I'll take a roll call and then I'll do it real quick.
Okay, welcome everyone. The work session, what the date? August the 13th at 1 o'clock. Can I get a roll call, Mr. Fetty?
Councilperson Tony Abbott.
Here.
Councilperson Dylan Little.
Present.
Councilperson Tommy Roulette.
Present.
Councilperson Lenny Fryman.
Here.
We got Councilperson Brett Bonner absent. We got City Attorney Dale Weldon.
Here.
Mayor Kelly Malone.
Here.
And myself.
Okay, today is really turned over to the LCD.
I'll start off, Kelly. I just really want to thank City Council and, of course, you, Mayor, Mark Fetty, and even Dell, for giving us an opportunity again to have a work session to talk again about our grant process. I think if you remember, we were here in January of this year to kind of lay a foundation of our pursuit of a grant. And what I've done, I've brought in Jennifer Ray from JMT, who's a senior grant writer, is going to walk us through a slide presentation. I've got Andrew Birmingham here from JMT, Luke Johnstone here from the Mondell Group. And what we're looking for is we've got a couple projects going. We're going to pursue a grant. The grant requires about a $16.8 million match, 25% match. It's about a $70 million project. We'll get more into the numbers and et cetera. But right now, the match is around $16.8 million. We've got a $4.2 million resolution of support from the city of Greendale. We've gave the 4.2. We're here today looking for your support on this grant project. So with that, I know there's going to be lots of questions. If Jennifer can't answer them, we got enough workforce here that we can answer any questions. So with that, I think I'll turn it over to Jennifer Ray to take us through this slideshow.
All right. Thank you so much, and thank you again for this work session so we can talk through this. I'm going to run through the slideshow. I'm fairly informal with this, so if you have questions, please feel free to ask them. And if they're going to be on a slide I'm about to cover, I'll just let you know that, and we can get to that on the slide. So starting off with just a little bit of information everybody is probably very well versed in with LCD and their primary responsibility of really protecting the public health, safety, general welfare, and property within these grants, within these levies, and making sure that everything continues to stay functioning and operational. And that's really where their funds are going to, is the maintenance and operations and the everyday style of repairs for these systems. JMT has been brought on. We are supporting LCD with the Greendale system, and Andrew Birmingham is here and can speak to that, as well as looking at the grant and funding plan for this as a major capital improvement project. And then Mondell is here supporting LCD with the Lawrenceburg system. And there he is. So I wanted to do just some quick introductions, wanting to just let you know a little bit about JMT and this firm, of why us, why were we brought in to speak on the grant services. And actually, before I go there, there are handouts in front of you, so you can see the information on the screens on either side. You do have a copy of that as well in front of you, so certainly feel free to follow along there. And then you also have a packet of just the various letters of support that we have received. And this is not all encompassing for this grant process, but definitely a really good first glance at what we have. So just a little bit about JMT. We are an employee-owned company, which means each of us as employees really take to heart what our role is at the company and work towards success. We do bring creativity and innovation, passion, commitment to our clients and our stakeholders. And really it comes down to we put our best foot forward. And we also, from a grants perspective, we don't look at grants and we don't look at taking on projects unless we recognize that they are well-positioned and well-suited as something that should be seeking grant dollars, because our success rate in writing grants is critical to that service that we offer. Our experience and success, as I mentioned, we look at grant research and tracking, so it's not just one grant, but we do look at the entire funding package. We identify how projects might be split apart, if that's helpful, or in some situations, how keeping it all together really is in the benefit of the community and that project for going after the larger dollars. We help with writing that grant and putting together successful grants, as well as helping with the administration, doing that support once the grant is received. And just in the last few years alone, we've secured over $750 million of grants. So a little bit about myself. Why am I the one standing here? 26 years of experience. So I have a very unique background with a degree in civil engineering, a certification in planning, doing a lot of grant writing and leading the grant writing services for the company, really across our entire footprint. I've done local grants. I've written grants for going to nonprofits and getting funding for that, really looking at unique opportunities, state grants, federal grants. Really understand the implementation planning and the project management aspect. And it really is, my entire career has been about helping people and communities thrive. And as we all know, those projects, to maintain quality of life and to continue to thrive, they take funding. And sometimes that funding is much greater than the standard operating budgets that we have. So why now? This continues to be the big question. Why now? Why are we looking at grants now when we have so much more engineering to do? You still have construction to do. And it's really because grants are that long lead item. It's the element that we need an entire community to be supportive of what we're seeking, to have those letters of support, to have those resolutions, to really identify and have the budget and the local funds set aside and earmarked for this effort, so that when grant opportunities are there, there's very little time. It's very much we have to be ready to apply instantly. And it's also because, you know, the funding is needed for looking at final design, looking at construction. You want to have all of that before you're even going out to secure a contractor to do the final work. The other piece is FEMA Region 5. They've reinitiated the update for the analysis and mapping plan for Lawrenceburg Greendale project, that LAMP. And that's really the critical component of a timing aspect here, because as they look at that, and these projects are needed in order to maintain and secure accreditation for the entire levee system, which is both, they're looking at Lawrenceburg and Greendale combined. If that accreditation does not happen, then everything with flood insurance and the pricing, it changes. And everyone's required then to have that, versus having that accreditation, having that provisional accreditation is allowing people to not be mandated on that flood insurance. So it's a huge economic change. It's also an economic change for potential development and redevelopment. And so that's really that ticking clock. As I mentioned already, final design and construction, it might not be funded or completed in time for the accreditation process if we're not looking at pursuing these grants and going after these dollars and setting everything up today. The major economic impacts I mentioned already, the potential for not having the development investment, for having any redevelopment or new projects being at risk because of that provisional accreditation. And the other big piece of it is really just garnering letters of support from community members. That action takes time. That's already been started, but that's really that team effort as well between all of the entities that are being asked to be a part of this, because it impacts all of us in these areas. So a little bit about the total cost. And, this is a very cost-focused presentation, but that doesn't waylay the idea that this is about everybody working together and that community support as well. But at the end of the day, we're talking about grants, which is about money, and so let's talk about some of the money. What you see on the screen here, this has been shared previously during that September 2024 charrette, talking about that $70 million total. And again, when we talk about this, you see it broken down as the Lawrenceburg Flood Protection Project and the Greendale Flood Protection Project. When FEMA is looking at this and that accreditation, they're looking at the Lawrenceburg Greendale project and they're modeling it together. And identifying these two together is very critical for looking at the costs and the grant opportunities. And so all of this shows out to 2028, which is an estimated inflation timeframe for construction and looking at when those dollars. So we keep saying $70 million because that's a nice round number and easy to talk about in newspapers and everything else. You can see what that total is on here. Of course, the screen doesn't take the red dot, but the 67.7 million and change. And that works with the total match of that 25% match of being the 16 to 17 million, which is where that number of the 4.2 million has come from, of a match from all entities involved. And this does show the engineering and permitting costs as well as that construction cost. So that I'll just always refer to it as 70 million. That $70 million is that all-in number to get everything constructed and be prepared with as-built in hand to be able to say, yes, this can be fully accredited because it has all of these improvements that are necessary. So grant requirements as a whole, again, a slide I've spoken to previously, but I always like to come back to it because it's something I do all the time and not everybody else does grants all the time. So I always like to come back and make sure that people are understanding all the different aspects of it. So there are a lot of funding sources that are available. They all do have different requirements for individual grant funds, but all of them have certain things that are non-negotiable. So the specific schedule, that is non-negotiable, and that schedule is from two aspects. One is applying for the grant. So there's no pushback. That date is that date, that time is that time. It's either in, submitted, or you're disqualified. And often what's called a NOFO, a notice of funding opportunity, with all the nuances that come about, and they change them each time to just make sure, I'm pretty sure it's just to make sure who's really paying attention and to start weeding some of the folks out. But usually those come out and there's a really short period of time to then actually submit for that grant and apply for that grant, which is why all of these components are so critical to have ready to go. So if something were to come out tomorrow, we can say, absolutely, we are here, we're ready to go, we have everything in line, and we can apply. And we've already had opportunities that have occurred where we've had folks reach out and we weren't quite ready yet. And so we don't want to have missed opportunities because, again, those schedules are non-negotiable. Once you win the grants, those schedules are also non-negotiable. So it is critical that funding is in place on the local side, the local match side, as well as the grant side. There are different requirements for each program to be competitive, and that's where I come in and doing all this research to make sure we understand that, and there's always some level of environmental documentation in there. I mentioned already that last one, you see it in bold, the local match designation is required in advance of the grant application submission, and it's typically 25%. Greater is a more competitive application. There's not very many grants that say they're requiring more than 25%, especially for larger dollar items. Now, what does that actually mean as a local match designation required in advance? I'll touch on that a little bit more in another slide, but it really comes down to that there's a resolution that says, yes, we have identified and agreed this much money, and we have it shown in a line item that's allocated. Not that the money is due today, but that's allocated for this project out of the budget.
Can I just ask a question?
Absolutely.
We're not allowed to budget more than a year in advance.
Okay.
So how's that going to work?
So with that, it's a resolution that states, and the resolution simply states that, yes, we are putting up $4.2 million And whether it can be shown that we anticipate by 2028 in the resolution, but that the $4.2 million is there. At the time that we identify and submit on the grants, we'll have some conversations of what does that actually look within the budget, but that in your funds, you've identified and basically said within this bank account, or however we look at it, that $4.2 million will be set aside for this project over the lifetime of this project.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So, which is a great lead into the next slide of what does that mean? All the local dollars must be accounted for and confirmed. So the binding resolution explicitly stating the dollars are set aside for this project is what's preferred. A budget line item noting the set aside, and that could even just be a budget line item stating per resolution, this money is set aside, will be set aside as a preferred. The other is a non-binding resolution, and our preference, of course, is the binding resolution that really has the distinction behind it. It is the most competitive. It is, there's a lot of people who want money. There's a lot of projects across this country that need to be funded. So it's about how do we be as absolutely competitive as possible? Because if we don't do absolutely everything possible, there's a chance another project might get, more or less viewed higher than this one. So having those binding resolutions is critical. The non-binding resolution is simply used to make known the opinions of that body in relation to a certain fact or event, but not be that full-on resolution that, again, from a competitive nature of the grant application is what they're looking at. And every little piece that we do, every little element that we can do to be more competitive, sometimes it truly is half a point when folks are going through these applications and judging them and comparing them of who's going to be funded. So required documents, financial commitment for all local funds for 25% or more of the project costs, which comes with that binding resolution from all the entities contributing to the local match. So you heard from Jim at the beginning that LCD already has $4.2 million in a resolution signed within our project records. We also have from the city of Greendale $4.2 million in a resolution signed, ready for the records. We are looking for, with all of the local match, we are looking at the city of Lawrenceburg, and we are looking at Dearborn County, and that's that $16.8 million. And it's very important to have everybody local who is directly impacted and has really the most kind of skin in the game with these levy systems to be the forefront of these resolutions and of having the support. It has come up, and I wanted to address a few questions we've gotten through the process, so in advance in case they were to come up here as well. So one of the questions came up of what about the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers? Why can't they throw in some funds? We should go and talk to them about funds. So we did. We met with them on March 28th. Now this was before the FEMA press release about the BRIC grant, which is something we had been looking at. At that time, they recommended BRIC as the best funding source for this effort. As we know, the BRIC grant is in a bit of a disarray at the moment. Through an executive order, it was canceled. There are a number of lawsuits against it, against canceling it and how it was canceled, so we're still looking at that. There are many other funding opportunities. They did acknowledge that U.S. Army Corps of Engineering funds can only be used on U.S. Army Corps of Engineering projects, so that makes sense. But they also recommended to, and they were recommending to project teams, look outside Army Corps for funding, Army Corps of Engineers for funding opportunities, that they don't have the funds to contribute, that they're encouraging people, as competitive as it is, and as few funds as they have that they've been helping out projects with, they're really encouraging people not to count on them for that funding source. They did talk about a Silver Jackets program, but that was simply an engagement resource. It is not about funding. So they shared that might be something to just help with engagement, but some of the things we've already been doing, certainly by these letters of support. And then the specific one that they said, the Water Resources Development Act, WRDA, which is for pumps and pumping stations only, certainly a component of these projects that are coming forward. But even there, the funding it's not significant, and it's only available many years out. There's many years that are already established. The appropriations have already been made. They're waiting for more. There's several years out before you could even consider going after that type of funding. When we go back to the overarching need of this accreditation process and the LAMP process being reinitiated, it's wanting to have those funding opportunities and be ready with the engineering work, the construction work, really being able to do that. And this doesn't even offer funding for several years out. So the current status of grant funding, as I mentioned, BRIC grant, it was a huge hit. To hear about that, there's many executive orders that have been out there that are changing up funding. There's a lot of lawsuits going on as well about some of these changes. So that was previously identified as the primary option for full funding, because it was a wonderful program that all $70 million, 16.8 being the local match included in that 70 million. It could be under one program. That was canceled through the executive order on April 4th. We are continuously looking at other grant programs, and they are all being refined on a regular basis of what's out there and what's to come. Even with the hazard mitigation, BRIC was a very specific program, but hazard mitigation still needs to be funded. Looking at the news, seeing what's out there, seeing the things that have just happened, we know hazard mitigation still needs to be funded, and it's still being refined how to do that. In each of these grant programs, they're requiring that 25% local match. That's really not anything that's going to change. That's like that having that money, knowing where it is, knowing it's already accounted for. Because at the end, and what you see in green on the screen and in your handout package, this project need and the cost, it's going to remain regardless of that grant program status. These improvements are needed, regardless of how much it costs, regardless of where the money's coming from. So that criticality, again, of knowing we are ready to go as soon as grant programs are refined is so, so important. Just want to mention on hazard mitigation, and if there are questions about this, I'll happily turn them over to others who can speak to them a little bit better than I can, but there does need to be a hazard mitigation plan that is in the works. That is actually one of the elements that did not cover all of the jurisdictions, so we were not able to go after certain funding earlier in the process. But that is in the works. That's one of the items that is being worked on, so we are ready to move as soon as the refined grant programs are out there. So I just wanted to share, I know I sound like a broken record, but as somebody who does grants all the time, just sharing that there's such a short period of time to apply. Imperative grant requirements are completed to really maximize that funding potential. And so what you see on this sheet and the next sheet is the checklist of the things that we can do now to make sure we're in the best position possible to seek out grants to take care of this entire levee system, which is, again, from the FEMA perspective, the Lawrenceburg-Greendale system is how they're mapping it, how they're looking at it. So, of course, the first one being identify commitment of 25% local match for funds. You can see, we've mentioned already, LCD signed resolution for funds is complete. City of Greendale signed resolution for funds is complete. We still have today the City of Lawrenceburg, and then for the future, Dearborn County.
Is that meeting set up? Dearborn County?
It is not yet set up.
You have not met with them?
No.
So it is, the thing that is really important in going to the county is also recognizing that those most impacted are already on board as well.
They're just as impacted as anyone.
Yes, absolutely.
Work on.
The other is the multi-hazard mitigation plan. That is in progress, as I mentioned. And then completing the benefit cost analysis for hazard mitigation projects. That is also in progress. That was near completion when the rules changed. with this current administration, and so that is why it's still in progress and not complete right now. That is being updated and showing again that yes, there is a need, and the benefit cost analysis aids in that. The obtain letters of support and governmental resolutions, that is in progress. That is something that will remain in progress until the day we submit that application. And that's really where we can all work together to keep seeking out more letters of support. That's when we talk about competitiveness of grants, having them from the major stakeholders in the area. You can see on the screen a list. You can also see in this packet some of those letters and who has already submitted. Hollywood Casino, MGP Ingredients, the school system, Stronghold, a lot of the ones that are, as I said, you can see up here, you can read them in here. In addition, 152 individual letters from freeholders have already been submitted in support of this grant program for this project. And then, of course, completing the grant application, and that is a future item as is grant applications occur. So that concludes the presentation and the information that we wanted to share, and definitely wanted to open it up, as this being a work session, certainly want to open up for questions, be able to answer any of those as we are in this moment, get answers immediately as we need to, just to make sure everybody feels comfortable with the information at hand, the need for this project, the need for this process, the need to find outside funding. And as I mentioned, some of those immediate next steps is, looking at those signed resolutions and continue to assist in gaining, getting more and more letters of support. That comes back to that competitiveness, and every little bit helps when it comes to competitive nature, because there is a finite amount of dollars that are out there and many, many projects across the country that people are looking at, and we want to make sure this is the one that gets selected.
I do have a question. What are the projects that the funds are for? I believe on our levee system, it's the relief wells. What are the other projects?
Absolutely. I will turn over to our two technical folks here.
Yeah. Thanks again for having us. Thanks again for having us, and good to see everyone. The two projects are, the one is the relief well replacement, and that's not going to be a one-for-one, but with all of the work that we've done, we've been able to identify certain areas that maybe don't need as many, or with deeper or bigger wells, you don't have to necessarily do a one-to-one replacement. And then on the north stretch of the levee, we've identified an additional area that's going to need additional work, and that's the slurry wall. So the slurry wall on the north slope is the other item, the big ticket item.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about the Greendale system. So Greendale has some general maintenance needs along the levee, some riprap placement, some smaller ticket items. The biggest improvements there are freeboard correction. There are portions of that levee that the top is anywhere from 6 to 12 inches low, and we're required to have 3 foot of freeboard above the 100-year or 0.1% or 1% chance annual exceedance probability in the river. So we'll need to bring that up. And then the other large ticket item there is the stormwater pump station, and relocating that to make it hydraulically connected to the ponding area in the back of the back in the fairground area. Right now, the pump system operations, I think it only operates one or two of the pumps out of the 8 that are in there before they cavitate, and so the efficiency of that stormwater pump system is not working properly. So that's one of the bigger ticket items over there.
Thank you.
Yep.
And then, so just for my clarification, from reading this, we aren't actually turning over the funds. We're creating a line item in our own portion.
Correct.
We keep the funds until there's an actual grant secured, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I got a few questions. I see Greendale here.
shouldn't have came. No, but I'm just kind of curious, you know, with this grant and stuff like that, as far as the funds available and stuff. I know there's like a time frame, you know, so this possibly could be 25, 26, 20. I mean, is it basically going to be 28, or could it be 25, 26, 27 when all this stuff happens?
It-
Or do we?
So the grants, we don't currently have an exact time frame because, as noted, if we were going after the brick grant, should the brick grant have continued, we would have been looking to go after that this October.
Well,
The grants themselves, so that 2028 that was shown in the costs, that was basically saying if we were securing the grants immediately, trying to get everything up to date. But the idea is that as soon as we are looking at and finding some of these grant programs, which we're already targeting a couple different ones, we need to be ready to go to submit.
So this possibly could take, you know, if you get the grant and everything, get started on it, it could take how many years? Is this something that could take 5 years, 10 years?
Yes.
So basically, we're saying, hey, you know, we're gonna give you know, we possibly would have to give $1 million because we'd only give our 25% match, and say you got started in 28, so we would give $1 million in 28, $1 million in 29, so forth and so on. I mean, I'm just kind of curious how Greendale kind of, I see your resolution and stuff with Greendale, and it's through redevelopment, and I'm just kind of wondering, you know, like, well, if this happened tomorrow, would you really have 4.2 million redeveloped? Probably not. No. And I just want to know with legally how you set that up, and, or did you go through your attorneys, I'm sure, enough to?
What I can tell you is that, again, a council member, and then I'm president of redevelopment too. So council committed 100,000, and then redevelopment committed 4.1 million.
Okay.
But we had to do it as one, so I think it just went through council, or council committed the funds to redevelopment, maybe redevelopment committed them, I can't remember which one. How legally, how Becky is budgeting that, I'm not positive. What we are doing in conversation with LCD, and it's public knowledge, is we're putting away, we're earmarking funds over a 4-year period. We budgeted over 4 years to come up to 4.1 million. And
Okay, starting in like, did you
we
start in
started
20?
at the end of last year.
So you're saying you're starting like 25 and budgeting,
We
for 4
started at the
years?
end of 24, we put 2 million away.
okay, for this project?
Yes,
Okay.
and what we did, when I say put away, we put it in a CD.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It's
And
earmarked
so
for.
redevelopment doesn't think that's funds we can put for enticing business or road development.
Yes.
And then what our budget is then at the end of the next 3 years, we'll put 700,000 away each year. So the 703 is 2.1 plus the 2 million, that's our 4.1, and then the council will give 100,000.
Okay.
So we kind of expect it over a 4-year period. And
Mark, we're earmarking TIF funds.
TIF, yeah.
Yeah, ours
Yes.
is-
I know it's TIF, yes.
yeah. And one reason for that is redevelopment just felt is pretty responsible for redevelopment because all that area that the levy protects isn't a
Is
TIF.
in the TIF district, yes.
And that approach is something that many other agencies I've worked with have done as well for their local. Not everybody has all the funds just sitting there right now. So it's a combination of how do you do this. I've worked with folks who have put on actually tourism taxes for areas that have large amount of tourism, hotels, elements like that. But a lot of times in their budgets, they're setting it up of it's in the budget, it's budgeted, and then it goes into essentially an account, a savings account, as a set aside. Not to say like tomorrow, here's 4.2 million, here's the check. And grants also are, it's not going to say, here's all of the dollars today. Like you've secured the grant, here's $70 million with your match, go to town. They're phased so that, and that's where grant administration comes in as well. So there's steps that each grant takes. It provides dollars for that next phase. You put up that match typically for that phase. That comes down to all the nuances of each individual grant program. But there's ways to do it. To the concern, Mayor, as you had mentioned earlier, if we only budget for 1 year at a time, those are ways to do it, so you can see, the funds are being set aside, the public is aware of it because it's transparent, and then that also really identifies that commitment when they're looking at grant applications as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few, with our funds, there's a few different ways that we can possibly do that. I just wanted some more information. Needless to say, it's up to them, it's not me, but I just want to have some options and some different things to be able to explain to them and what funds that we use and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And one other quick item on that, it's, the other question that often will come up, and I've had this happen with other agencies, like if we clean out our bank account, we could probably make this work. And, if you have funds sitting there, is that going to be against you? And that is not, because, these are unique, large-scale improvement projects that don't get accounted for in operations and maintenance and in the regular life cycle improvement projects. And so that's when federal agencies, state agencies, when they're looking at these grant applications, they're recognizing that the funds that are available within an agency's budget is for those maintenance, those operations, the life cycle improvement projects, not these mega large-scale improvements that are needed. So they're anticipating that. So it's nobody's anticipating and saying, well, if you cleaned out your entire budget, we could, you would have it. So that they don't want to see that happen. They need to see that you can still function as an agency, function in all of your regular capabilities. So.
Question for Greendale. Briefly read the resolution. Did you have anything in there contingent upon? In other words, if they do not get the grant, do you still give said money to them?
I'm looking over our attorney. The understanding from redevelopment is if they don't get the grant.
But do you have that in writing? Is that, did you guys, I'm sorry, I didn't.
That's a, I'll defer to
full.
Anthony on that one.
Yeah, the resolution states that it's based on us entering an interlocal agreement. The interlocal agreement essentially would commit the funds and say that we will give them the funds when they receive the grant.
Grant, okay.
And that would be a firm commitment as a project partner.
Well, and I understand that, and I feel if we, the city of Lawrenceburg, do that, there will be a resolution/agreement that this is the way this will work, because we don't want to sit here, I may not be here next term, some of the others may not, and yet we may be putting money towards something that may not ever happen. I'm not saying it won't, but yet then we have to give that money up because we didn't have that provision in contingent upon. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, and that's often letters of resolution have that caveat, and and that comes down to, my degree is in engineering, not in law, so that comes down to other folks who want to essentially say, yes, this is committed, with the understanding this is the local match. So if there's no grant program, there's no local match.
There is one question I have about the TIF area for Greendale. To my understanding, you're supposed to spend your TIF money within your TIF area. So will that be all right to give that grant money when it's being used for the city of Lawrenceburg's levy also? They're not going to come up then and say, oh, we can't do this because it's Lawrenceburg's using it also, out of the TIF area.
Can I answer that real quick, Jennifer?
Absolutely.
Tony, thanks for that question. Luckily, I don't know if it's lucky, the poor city of Aurora, I think we're going to TIF the whole city before we're done, but just so you know, what TIF money can be for is as long as that TIF money is being used to help with the improvement of your zone, you are allowed to spend it on it. So if you had streets leading in to your TIF area, you could repair those with the TIF money for that area. And so what it is that this levee complex is a web. It's kind of like, can the Greendale work without Lawrenceburg? Absolutely not. Greendale absolutely needs the Lawrenceburg levee system to be good, active, and well-being. So really, them spending money or any money, of course, it's all fungible. The 4.2 is going to go throughout that whole 70. It's going to help Greendale with their levee district and therefore help the TIF district. So I hope that answer makes sense to everybody. Okay. Thanks, Jen. Sorry.
No, thank you.
I got two questions,
Absolutely.
and I'll be quiet about it, but what happens if someone doesn't participate in these 4 entities? On the 4.2, what happens?
The challenge is the grant most likely will not be competitive. And that will mean that there will have to be other avenues to be evaluated. I mean, in the end, the projects and the accreditation exist no matter what. Whether these, if there's no grant, if there's no improvements done, the system does not become accredited and flood insurance is required everywhere, which does change the redevelopment potential. It changes the economics tremendously.
Okay, question two. I know you're throwing the $70 million project cost out. Who came up with that? And is that an engineered cost? Okay, I see Paul shaking his head.
Yes, I'm going back to it
I
here.
can tell you right now that we've got projects that are coming in over engineered budgeted cost. So who makes up that difference? If it comes back, when you go out for bid, and it comes back at 74 million, who's on the hook for the other 4 million?
Sure. I'm actually going to turn this over to Berman Luke a little bit on the cost side. That is something, as I mentioned, with a background, my degree in engineering as well, I've looked at cost components. I am well aware that post-COVID costs are all over the place. We've seen that in a lot of areas. And so we do include contingencies within these cost estimates. But I'll let some of the technical folks speak to that specifically for this project, because I was not involved in that. We also have looked at with the inflation factors, and I've reevaluated, even re-examined, even since this was first put together in 24, not 04. In 2024, those inflation factors have remained stable. But let me turn it over first to speak to the costs as how they were developed for the confidence in the costs, and then we can speak to the second portion of the question regarding what happens next.
Yeah, the numbers that you see up there were developed based on the proposed improvements, and then using best available data, construction estimate data from both Indiana DOT and other local sources. We did apply a 25% contingency on top of those numbers, which is
25% contingency out of the 70 million
it's baked in.
It's baked into that.
Yep,
into the 70 million?
that's correct.
25% contingency out of a $70 million project.
Because
Am I saying that right?
yeah, because of the lack of full-scale engineering and permitting that's been completed yet. We haven't gotten through final design. Those are very high-level preliminary, 10% type design estimate numbers, probable construction
Okay, so
numbers.
what if you come back and you say, hey, we're at 90% now, and really the cost is gonna be 52 million? What happens? Do we get a rebate?
We haven't got the money yet.
Yeah, then the interlocal
But our resolution says 4.2.
up to, right?
I think it says-
I think it would be,
Okay.
yeah, it would still be that 25% match from the four parties. That's correct.
The match would be less.
Yeah.
And are you gonna have, who's done all the engineering on the costs, you guys?
Yeah, so JMT did it for the Greendale, and Mundell has done it for the Lawrenceburg system.
Well, then I'd like to hear if he's gonna stand by his numbers.
Yeah.
If it's the Lawrenceburg side.
Good point, Mayor.
Yeah, no, we did the same type of engineering analysis, looking at the best available data. With the relief wells, we used, installing wells around the area and things like that. So also some realer numbers, accounting for inflation, and then having the contingency in there baked into that with the 25%. And then I believe we might have had another 10% within that too. So just because it's at this preliminary stage, you have that extra contingency.
So, okay, thank you.
Yep.
So going back to your synopsis, that you gotta be ready, right?
Correct.
When this grant comes available, you gotta be ready. If it becomes available next month, you're not ready.
Correct.
Because, or in 2 months, you're not ready because you're only at 10% drawings. You are nowhere near right, where you need to be?
Well, the funds, and this slide, which is page 8 in your packet, the funds that are being requested are for the engineering, the permitting, and the construction. This is not just the construction of the project. It is to take it from where it is today, do all of the final engineering, getting the permits, and doing the construction. So from a perspective of, are we ready to submit for a grant? The pieces that we are not yet ready with is the benefit cost analysis needs to be finalized, which is getting close. The resolutions need to be in place, which we're halfway there. And the hazard mitigation plan needs to be wrapped up, and that's in progress as well. So if this is tomorrow it were released, we would look at it, look through, analyze what the requirements are. We would not be able to apply for that particular funding opportunity. I keep a record of the various funds that are available, who they are, what the requirements are, what the general time frame is, because that's something that's also known year after year. If it's a repetitive grant, we know the general time frame, and we also look to prepare ourselves in advance of even when that notice of funding opportunity comes out, so that when it comes out, we are prepared. We read through it for the caveats and the nuances that might change, and then we're able to apply for it.
Would all the engineering and the grant cost, are those pretty much taken care of by the Conservancy right now, or would they, eventually those numbers be put into the grant, or, I mean, to the whole project?
They cannot be. The funds that have already been expended to get to where it is today with the 10% were completed by the Conservancy. The preparation of grant funds, or the preparation of grant applications, cannot be included in a grant. Are there any other questions?
Lenny,
I don't know if you'd like to.
you don't have anything?
Pretty much asked what I was gonna ask.
You were gonna ask something, question?
Mike, go ahead.
Can audience ask questions?
Yeah.
Absolutely,
Jennifer?
Yeah.
absolutely.
No, no, you're fine. Jennifer, we had a Public Works Director who was at Greendale for a short period of time, then took a job in the private sector. He came from NDOT, and he was at the presentation in Greendale when the LCD did this, and he asked if we had talked to Indiana, because he said US 50 is a major military, or it's
Major
not-
military corridor.
Major military corridor, and he thinks, would they help? So has the LCD or you looked into Indiana because of that designation, that there'd be any assistance in maybe even potentially matching or anything like that?
So a lot of going with the state is in talking to various representatives as well. Those items will help create this to be more competitive. I have worked on different projects where it is military routes. A lot of those come through Federal Highway Administration and are between the eastern federal lands and western federal lands. They have their own very specific designations for the programs, and they're quite frequently done within either the eastern federal lands or western federal lands, not so much the state-specific funding. But absolutely, the state is required, as the state of Indiana is also going to be a part of all of this, simply because it is within the state, and not wanting to have more than one major applicant of a grant of the nature we're looking at.
Yeah, so the state hazard mitigation officer, Ashley Steve, we need her and her office's support for any federal hazard mitigation project that we would be putting forward for a grant. So it would certainly come in on that front. From a will they chip in perspective, that hasn't been specifically asked, but I think in the past our experience is
They don't, but they, okay.
Yeah.
Right. Thank
but
you.
their support is obviously huge, right?
Okay.
Right,
Thank you.
and specific to the US 50 as that military convoy corridor, I have looked into that, and the best funding opportunities come through Federal Highway Administration in conjunction with projects and programs they do with military installations.
Thank you.
So technically, if you get support, let's just say, we don't know how it's gonna work, but You got Greendale, if you don't get Dearborn County, this ain't gonna fly no ways, right? Or not, yeah, if you don't get Dearborn County to participate in this 4 million.
We hadn't asked them yet.
So, but if it doesn't happen,
I'm confident.
if it doesn't happen, this wouldn't go on, right?
Well, we'd have to regroup. We've got to keep this
We'll have to do-
certified, so we're gonna have to regroup and go back to the drawing board. I mean, I would think we'd be back. We're not gonna just give up and not
Yeah.
keep pursuing
Yeah.
the recertification, but.
And there were representatives from Dearborn County present back September of 2024 to hear the information as well. And we're very interested in recognizing where we were in the process and that this is coming forward.
When you be going to talk to them?
We hadn't even got on the,
Don't have you?
we hadn't got on the agenda or anything.
Nothing scheduled.
But I would certainly hope that if the city of Lawrenceburg agrees to join us in this venture, that Dearborn County would certainly come on to help us with that. I mean.
I don't know, Randy. I don't think they really care what we do. But you might be right.
We would hope.
Yeah.
We would hope if we had 3 out of 4, that it would be easier for us to get them to come on board.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Can I say a few things? The one thing I'd like to say is, you know, we're all kind of thinking and wondering timeline. Well, what we've done is with this hazard mitigation program, the county was actually going to do it next year. So I talked the board into us paying for it, and we done it this year. So we're pushing this thing as hard as we can all the way through it. And the way I see it, you know, with whatever decision you guys make, and, you know, I'm hoping you make one, I've always felt like, because I know you guys better, I know Greendale better, and my board, but the reason why we chose the county last is because we just don't know them as well. So we're hoping that we have all this information and this support from the people we know, to where when we walk in this place, that they know that we have 15 or 20 people behind us that are important people in town that are really thinking this is a good cause. And I can promise you one thing, as soon as you guys make your decision, and we hope you make it real soon, and we hope we get the resolution real soon, because I'm gonna go right to work and get on the agenda and get all the information we can and the people we need to at the meeting. They don't have meetings on a regular basis like we all got. So I'm not sure what I'm gonna run into, but I plan on going to all the meetings and start talking to people and getting things, and I have met with a few of them. So I feel positive. I really do feel positive. I feel like it's a good cause, but my group of directors have really been working hard, and we have spent money to move this thing forward, to try to get an opportunity to bring this much money to the community. So I just wanted to make you aware of that we're trying not to lollygag here. We're trying to push things, but in our world, things don't get pushed real fast, you know. We're waiting on the Corps to okay things, and we're sitting back. But we are ready to move on if you guys decide to make a decision. That's the thing.
So I think my question to this group would be, you need 2 weeks or you need 30 days? We can put it on the agenda for one of our meetings.
Well,
Yeah,
we could
what
vote
I-
today, could we not?
What I would like
No,
to
we
do.
don't have all 5 people.
What I would like to do is, I would like to get with the city attorney, I don't know where he went, but I would like to, okay, I'd like to get with him and basically create a resolution, and then basically bring it to the first meeting in September, the second one, and you guys can vote on it.
My thought process is we've been working with these guys since January. I don't want to push them down the road anymore. I hear what you're saying. The motion I was going to make is we'll make a motion to approve it contingent to any review of a resolution that the city attorney would need to do, also working with you to make sure that we added.
Well, we can't pass it till we have a resolution, so, and you know, the thing. I mean, I guess,
Really
you know,
want all
we had a good group here. I mean, you could get something here. My thing is,
Well, this meeting's
Yeah.
been on for, I get it, I hate to drag this on any longer than it has been.
I'd like to get it done too, but I would like to have all councilmen present, and
Can
Brett's
we,
not
for
here.
2 weeks or 30 days?
Yeah. And
first
different-
meeting.
I would like to see it, sorry, Mayor, if we could, the first meeting in September. if we
That's what
could.
I would like.
That's what would,
Yeah.
Not prolong it anymore.
And I do just want to share one item, coming back to, and sorry to interrupt on your discussion, but I do want to share one item when it comes to the resolution, again, from a competitive nature on grants. I cannot stress enough that any grant program is so competitive, and we need to garner every potential point we absolutely can. There is a draft resolution. There's one that's been prepared. That's the one the LCD has signed. It's the one City of Greendale's taken a look at. So that draft is there, and having language that is the same, if not verbatim the same, but all of the intent is the same, is very, very important, because that's what truly shows that combined effort. So that resolution has been drafted. So that is something to use as, because I'm also all about efficiency. So instead of reinventing the wheel.
Paul, is that what you gave me? Or was it?
That's what I asked for your copy.
You have them, you have the
This
two.
is
Yep.
Greendale's, right?
Plus theirs.
And plus the redevelopment one.
Anthony, did you guys change the resolution that originally you guys from
Almost
the LCD?
identical, except I think at the end, we just said that giving any money would be pursuant to an interlocal agreement.
Contingent upon.
And it changed the 100,000 and the 4.1.
Yeah.
So it just changed that piece of it. Everything else was the verbatim.
Well, we'll put it on the agenda for.
We would have to state a fund, what it's coming out of for the money. And
You're simply stating 4.2 million.
Oh.
Yeah, you're
so
not-
they'd-
You don't have to identify today, or for this resolution, you don't have to identify. The resolution is the 25%, which is recognized as 4.2 million,
Yeah.
is being provided for this.
Yeah, a lot of times when you do these grants, you gotta give documentation to see that you actually.
That, with the grant application, that will, for the resolution is really that first step, and then that's where you have time to then take a look, and whether it's setting up something similar to how the city of Greendale has done it, you know, where it's a line item year by year of this much is allocated, this much is allocated, like that's for the application. When the application comes out, you know, and we identify that grant, there will be coordination between everybody, because there will be, you know, documentation that's needed. That will be something separate, but having the resolutions and knowing that the funds are accounted for we need that to even consider looking at a grant opportunity.
But I would say similar to Greendale, though, being prepared and making sure that those funds are
Yes.
set aside is good, because you only have 2 weeks to submit your application when they open up typically.
Yeah.
2 to 4 weeks, so
Mark,
not a lot of time.
You're, on your end, though, you just set up a fund, and then every year that it would be budgeted.
Well, that's what I was
gets
wondering. I mean,
budgeted,
would I
you
say,
just
all
move
right,
that
I'm
to the
taking this
fund.
money out of MDF, or basically, am I basically
No.
doing then I'd have to do additional appropriation basically to create a new fund to put the money in there. I want to get everything in a row as far as what they need.
The resolution does not need to include that, though.
Okay.
The resolution just needs to state the dollars are being put up as a match to this effort, which is the verbiage that's in there. The documentation for the grant application is going to have to identify that, but the resolution is kind of that first, like, hey, do we even have these dollars together? If we do, then yes, we're basically what we consider ourselves as ready to go, should something come out. And certainly that does need to be worked out, but that is not imperative for the resolution.
No, we'll get it figured out. It's just a little bit more detailed than that.
It may not be imperative for the resolution, but it'd be imperative for us to vote on it, to know where the money's coming
Yes,
from.
and to get a vote.
We could take it out LCD's money, we pay them.
Did I get a second on that?
I didn't
We'll
get
it on September 2nd, I think is the next meeting, if I'm not mistaken. Let me look, guys.
And certainly, if there are any questions that come up necessary to really identify and vote on this, please do reach out. Jim and Paul get in touch with me so that I can provide that information, because I want to make sure, and our purpose of being here with this work session was to make sure that the questions are answered and everybody is comfortable with the information and has the information.
So you're saying this is 4 or 5 years out?
Not necessarily, not the application. The application is we are actively looking and identifying resources.
Right now.
Right now. So the dollars are needed for the engineering, the permitting, and the construction. So the completion of the improvements is looking at 4 or 5 years out.
They're, not to, I guess just to rephrase, but they're just betting that somebody's gonna come up with a grant that they can apply for. Right now, there's not a grant to apply for.
There's not one that is as all-encompassing, yeah.
And it will not hurt as much money as you guys got in your banking account. That's not going to hurt you as far as getting the grants? I know it's hurt us quite a bit.
He's talking about our compensate, our balance.
Oh, no, that will not. So because that's really, the dollars that are in there are for the everyday actions and the life cycle projects. Because there's certain projects that just have to be done for the life cycle. When it comes to the major infrastructure improvement, which this is, that is not held against an agency, because if you were to spend all of those dollars, you don't have the funds to then maintain afterwards. And that's also what gets considered and looked at overall, is that not only can you build this, but once you build this, you better maintain this. And so that's why it's recognized that you're not spending the money that is in your bank account, because it's not allocated for this project, because you can't do anything afterwards. Because that is part of the application, is identifying, once it's built, how are you going to maintain it? Because nobody wants to give you money if you're not going to be able to maintain it.
So Kelly, what other information do you think, or counsel, you might need for us? If it's going to be on the, Jennifer did a great job, of course, but what other information do you think as you leave this meeting, or if you need more information, please get it to us, what you need to be able to get that on the agenda for September?
It'll be on the agenda.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on the agenda. It'll be on the agenda. I don't think we need any information from you guys. It's more from the clerk treasurer. How are we going to allocate this money? I'd like to know that before I vote on it.
Well, and that's part of the discussion. I mean, it's like, do you want to, what fund do you want to take it out of?
Right.
TIF, I don't think we could actually do the TIF thing.
Nope.
No.
So,
Is there a way that we
there was a little discussion. That's why I just like to, talk to the attorney and basically figure that out.
I'd just like to know, ain't there a way we can take this from Greendale without them knowing it?
We could do what?
Take it from Greendale.
Oh. They got much better than we do.
Figure they could throw some more in there. We just.
Thank you for your presentation. So we'll have it on the agenda for September 2nd. Remember, September 1st, Labor Day, so it'll be a
Right.
Tuesday night meeting. I'll get Kelly to put it on the agenda, and you guys got questions in between now and then, contact the LCD and Mr. Fetty, whatever questions you guys have, and we'll go from there.
September
Thank you so
2nd.
much.
Thank you, guys.
Other thing I'd like to ask is if this all turns out positive and you guys are in favor and everything, could we talk you into going to a county meeting with us and showing your support? If we make that approach, because I just feel like us approaching this as a concerned community would be a real good thing to once we have that initial meeting and get something good set up.
Yeah.
That's my
Trying to figure out
only
how
other
many pieces
request.
You got from Greendale now, but you got a few in there. But I have no problem with that as well as Mr.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
It's the first time I've seen it take very long to do that.
Yep.